Guys, good morning. My name is Drew Chapman. If I have not had the chance to meet you, I get to serve. It's just a privilege and the honor of being the senior pastor here at First Baptist. And if I have not had a chance to meet you, I look forward to meeting you one day. I will try to get to you. But if you are a guest with us, please go ahead and fill out that Connect form. Put it in one of the brown drop boxes as you exit here this morning. There's one at each exit. And if you've been coming for a little while, all right, or maybe you haven't been coming for too long, but you're curious about who we are and maybe what we're about and what does it look like to take some next steps with us and what does it look like to connect deeper into groups or things like that, man, we would love to have you come to Discover First this Wednesday. All right, it starts at 6, but if you come earlier, we have dinner and we'll feed you dinner. All right, it's free. We'll pay for your dinner. You can eat, and then at 6 o'clock, we start Discover First. And again, it is our next step in membership. If you want to join, that is where you go. So if you're here and you want to join, definitely make sure that you attend. But if you're here and you just have more questions and you want a place where you can ask those questions, that's what Discover First is for. So this Wednesday night, we'd love to see you here. And if you want to, just fill out that Connect form and put it in one of those brown drop boxes saying, hey, I'd love more information on Discover First, and somebody this week will follow up with you. All right, so let me ask you a question. Let's get in our holy imagination for a little bit. Let's use our imaginations. I want to ask you this question. If you knew, and if I knew that Jesus was coming back next month, okay, we knew that, what would look different? Would we do something differently? Like if we had that knowledge and we knew that, would we do things differently? Would you start doing something you've been putting off? Would you stop doing something that's wasting your time or draining your soul? Like, are there things that you've been putting off? Is there forgiveness that you haven't extended to somebody that you would extend forgiveness to? Would you start sharing your faith with somebody that you haven't shared your faith with? Is there a level of generosity that you would get to, that you would give your stuff away or whatever that looks like? Like, if you knew Jesus was coming back, what would look different? Would you finally step into something he's been calling you to that you've been ignoring, all right, or that you've been sort of pushing to the side? Would you start to take steps into that? The truth is, most of us live like we've got all the time in the world. All right, we live like this is all there is, and we got all the time in the world. But in Matthew chapter 25, Jesus tells a story about a master and his servants and talks about this idea that the master goes on a journey and he comes back and he checks in and he comes back unexpectedly. They didn't know when he was going to return, and he checks in and they're to give an account of what they did with what they had while he was gone. And so to ask you again, if we knew Jesus was coming back next month, would we do something differently? It's at the heart of Matthew 25 is that everything that we have, our time, our talents, our resources, our opportunities, they're not really ours to begin with. We didn't earn them. We didn't create them. We don't own them. Whatever we have, they belong to God, and he has given them to us to steward. And so we're in our middle of our U-turn series. Last week we talked about the U-turn that we take from being broken to brand new and who we are in Christ now. But as we take a U-turn, we said it's not a 360, because if you're headed in one direction and you turn all the way around in a 360, you're just headed right back to who you used to be and what you used to do. But what we're saying is it's not a 360, it's a 180, and we're headed now in a new direction. And so the direction we're talking about, that as we encounter Jesus and we experience the resurrected Jesus for ourselves, we move from broken to brand new. And this morning we're talking about moving from ownership to stewardship. And our big idea this morning is this: we don't own what we have, we manage what we've been given. We don't own what we have, we just manage what we've been given. And this is what we're going to learn from Matthew 25, verses 14 through 30. Matthew 25, verses 14 through 30. Jesus is telling a parable. And it's been said that a parable is an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. And this is part of what is called the Olivet Discourse. And so what that means is Jesus and his disciples, his followers, had left the temple. They were headed away from Jerusalem. And they start to ask him questions. They start to ask him about his second coming, because Jesus is coming back. We need to understand that. His followers knew that. He had shared that with them, but they wanted to know, when is he coming back? And then Jesus goes on to tell them this story. It's from the Olivet Discourse, because on the Mount of Olives, Jesus stops and he begins to talk to them, and he begins to share these truths with them. And so he talks about a man that's going on a journey. And these are the two things that we learn from this morning. All right, we need to remember this. Jesus is in fact coming back. This is what we need to know about his second coming. The complete gospel is this. Yes, Jesus, he lived the perfect life and he died the death that we deserve. And 3 days later, he rose again and he ascended to the Father. But too often we stop there. Jesus is coming back a second time for those that believe that he will come a second time. And so he is coming back. But the second thing we need to know about Jesus coming back is this. Nobody knows when. All right? And so some crazy person on the radio, some crazy person on TV or a podcast is saying they know when Jesus is coming back. Jesus is really clear. Nobody knows when except for the Father. Even Jesus himself does not know when he's coming back. And what does that do? That doesn't, we don't sit around and just wait on him. We actually live our lives, but we live them a certain way. And we live them in light of if he could come back tomorrow. And at any minute, and that is the point of this story, is that we don't own what we have. We just manage what we've been given until he comes back. And so, the first thing we'll see here in verse 14, it says, "For it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted them with his property." So Jesus is the man going on a journey. We need to clarify that. The characters in the story that he's telling, he is the one that's leaving to go on a journey. And he will come back. And this is what he's saying. And then he entrusts his servants with some property. And so the servants are those that follow him, that love him, his disciples. But the word entrust is very important to what we're understanding here this morning. Entrust means that it's given to them. He gives them his property, and he says, you take care of this until I get back. And we're going to see some other things that he says to do with it. But entrust is important. When we make the U-turn from ownership to stewardship, we're making the shift in our mind that we didn't earn it, that he entrusted us with it. That's two different ways to look at it, and it's very important. So what's the difference? Well, if you look at the table that I put together, entrusted, it means that it's a gift from somebody else. That if we have something that's been entrusted to us, it means it was given to us by somebody else. But if we think we earned it, then it's a result of our own effort. Entrusted means it belongs to the one that gave it to you, and you just manage it. I just manage it temporarily. But earned means that it belongs to me and I control it. Entrusted means that it leads and it stirs in me gratefulness and thankfulness and humility and responsibility if I believe I've been entrusted with something. But if I believe I earned it, then it stirs in me pride. It stirs in me entitlement and possessiveness. I hold on to things. I'm greedy. I'm not thankful. I'm just entitled, like I believe I deserve it. Entrusted means that I use it wisely, and the one that gave it to me, they have a purpose for it, and they got goals for it, and I need to understand what those are, and I need to help achieve those. But if I think I earned it, then I can use it however I see fit. It's mine. I'll do whatever I want to with it. Entrusted means that I must answer one day to the one who entrusted it to me. There's accountability there. There's accountability to somebody else. But if I believe I earned it, then I only answer to myself. I'm only accountable to myself. So we need to shift. When we take the U-turn from ownership to stewardship, that we don't own what we have, we just manage what we've been given. We shift in our minds from this idea that we earned it, and we shift to the reality that it was entrusted to us. And so as you've been sitting there and as we're thinking about skills and abilities and talents and resources, opportunities that we have, I hope that the Holy Spirit has been bringing to your mind these things that God has given to you and entrusted to you. And what are those things that you have? What are those things that you have? Those abilities or those skills or the opportunities or the circumstances that you find yourself in. What are those things that are unique to you that you have, that you can steward, that you're managing well for God's kingdom? Opportunities that you might have that someone else does not. So the first thing we learn here is that everything comes from God. It's entrusted to us. We didn't earn it. But what we also learn from this story that Jesus tells is not only is everything that we have come from Him, but the amount of what we have comes from Him as well. Jesus goes on to say this, to one, he's talking about the master, he gave 5 talents, to another he gave 2, to another 1, to each according to his own ability. The master is not playing favorites in this story. Jesus is not in any way suggesting that the first 2 were loved more because they got more. They weren't valued more because they got more. He's not suggesting in this story that they worked harder and that they earned 5 or that they worked harder and they earned 2. He's simply suggesting that the master is giving to them according to their abilities, according to their capacity. And this goes right into the face of what we deal with in our culture all the time. See, it's difficult. As a kid, I grew up with the American dream. If I just work hard enough, I can make anything happen. I can have whatever I want. If I can dream it, I can do it. And we don't just want equal opportunity, we want equal outcomes as well. And so we give trophies for participating because we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And Jesus says, though, that's not how the master worked. The master gave according to their abilities. He wasn't showing favoritism in this. He was showing wisdom in this. He knew what they could handle. He knew what he could expect from them. He knew what he could trust, and he knew what they were capable of. And so he gives to them according to their abilities. It's not about equal results. It's about faithfully managing what God had given to them. It's not to build their own kingdom. See, I think too often we think, man, we got all this stuff. I must be doing pretty good. You've heard people say, you must be living right, right? That's not it at all. It's for His kingdom. It's not for your kingdom. And it's not for my little kingdom. It is for God's kingdom. And so what we have, we've been given to us by Him. And I think about my own kids. I got 3 kids. They're different ages. They got different personalities. They are gifted uniquely. They are wired differently. And I am not a loving parent if I treat all of my kids exactly the same. That means I love them equally, but they're different. I need to know what encourages them, what motivates them. I don't need to challenge them the same way. I don't need to challenge all 3 of them the same way, or I don't need to reward them all 3 the exact same way. I need to understand them individually. It doesn't make me a loving parent to treat them all equally. It makes me a loving parent to intentionally get to know them and to love them individually and to call out the best in them each individually. And so you could say it like this: our God loves us equally, but He entrusts us uniquely. Let me say that again. He loves us equally, but He entrusts us uniquely. This can be difficult for us to understand because, again, growing up, I thought my life should always be trending up and to the right. It should always be improving. I should always be growing and gaining, improving and increasing what I have. Like if it was this size, then it should be this size now. If I made this much, I should make this much now. And it's this steady idea that we should always be trending up and to the right. But what happens when that doesn't happen? What happens when that's not going on in our lives? It's not because we're not living right? It's that we've been entrusted with a certain amount based on our ability and our capacity, not for our kingdom, but for God's kingdom. And here I just put put in my holy imagination, and I try to put myself in the shoes of the guy that got 1 talent. And I think about him sitting there going, man, what is going on? Like, what? Why did I only get 1 and they got 2 and he got 5? Like, what is the deal there? And all of a sudden he throws a pity party for himself. I picture him getting his phone out and looking at their highlight reels on social media going, man, what is he doing? Now he's got 2 talents and he gets to do all this. And he's got 5 talents and I see him living this way and he gets to do all this. And all of a sudden comparison takes over and complaining takes over. That's just my holy imagination. I just picture that happening in this moment with this gentleman that got 1 talent. But when we shift and we make a U-turn from ownership to stewardship, we shift not only that we earn, that we go from earning to entrusting, but we move from what we don't have to what we have. Instead of focusing on what we don't have, we focus on what we have. And how is God wanting us to use this for His kingdom? How is God, like if we put it in His hand and we just give it to Him, how can He multiply it and use it for His kingdom? We all have something. And so the next thing we learn is that it's all about faithfulness. It's all about faithfulness. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants came, settled accounts with them, and he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more. Master, you delivered to me 5 talents, and here he lays it out, I made 5 more talents. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also who had the 2 talents came forward, saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here, I've made you 2 more. His master said, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here, and he says, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also who had received the 1 talent came forward saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here, have what is yours. Here's 5. Here's 2. This is what we were doing while you were gone. Hang on. Let me go dig up what you gave me before you left, and let me give it back to you exactly like it was, out of fear. Different amounts, but the same expectation for all 3 servants. Faithfulness was the expectation. Not fruitfulness, but faithfulness. Everybody has something to invest. Even the servant who was given 1 talent still had something to give. And researchers say that 1 talent in 2025 would be worth $1 million. They had something to give. But it was a wrong view of the master that had the 3rd servant in fear. He was paralyzed with fear. All right? He didn't want to disappoint him. He didn't want to do it wrong. He didn't want to fail, and he goes and he buries it in the ground. It was a wrong view of the master. And we said a couple weeks ago when we quoted A.W. Tozer, we said what comes into your mind when you think about God is the most important thing about you. And what came into his mind was a wrong view of who God was, of who the master was. And so instead of living faithfully and investing and multiplying this 1 talent and using it for the master's kingdom, he goes and he buries it out of fear. And so this fear he had led to a faithless life. And he wasn't living the way that God had called him to. The one who had 5 made 5 more. The one who had 2 more. They understood the master. They understood the master was loving. They understood the master was going to take care of them, that the master could be trusted. And so they take their talents, and what do? They invest them, and they take risks with them. Now, I didn't say they were reckless with them. I didn't say that they were wasteful with what they had been given, but they took risks with what they had been given. Why? Because they they had a right view of who the master was. And the point of this parable that Jesus is telling is not that they both doubled what they had. The point that Jesus is trying to make is that they were faithful to use what the master had given them. So it's not, he didn't say that when the master returned, the master did not come to him and say, "Well done, good and fruitful servant." He came to him and said, "Well done, good and faithful servant." It's about faithfulness. I think about the story of D.L. Moody. D.L. Moody founded Moody Bible College. He also founded Moody Church. He was an incredible proponent of Sunday school, using it to reach the urban kids in Chicago. He was an incredible evangelist. It is said that D.L. Moody in his lifetime eventually preached the gospel to over 1 million people. What an incredible testimony, and what an incredible servant for the kingdom. But if you knew D.L. Moody growing up, you would never have thought that he was going to change the world like he did. You never would have thought these things, because he was poor, he was uneducated, and the first church that he tried to join, he got turned away because he did not know enough about the Bible. Now look, if you were thinking about coming to Discover First and you think we're going to ask you a bunch of questions about the Bible and you got to know a bunch about the Bible, that is not true. Okay, if you've never joined a church, that is not what's going to happen in Discover First. But this church that D.L. Moody tried to join, they turned him away because he didn't have enough knowledge of the Bible. You would not have looked at D.L. Moody based on how we perceive people and based how we judge people a lot and said, "Man, this guy is going to change the world." But he once said this, "The world has yet to see what God can do with a man fully consecrated to Him." He knew that it wasn't about what he had or how much he had. It was how faithful he would be with what God had entrusted to him. And then he went on to say, "By God's help, I aim to be that man." God doesn't measure us by how much we've been given. He measures us by how faithful we are with it. See, the third servant thought that the master was unfair. He thought that the master was harsh, and it led him to in fear, bury and to hide and to neglect what the master had given him. And we know this, that we have talents and we have skills and we have abilities, we have resources, we have opportunities, we have circumstances, we have experiences that we too bury. And we are not using for the glory of God, that we have ignored or that we have hidden away. And I know during this time that you guys have probably thought about resources, you probably thought about your talents, you probably thought about skills. But let me ask you this. The scripture teaches this, that all things come from God. That our circumstances, where we find ourselves and our experiences come from God, that they either come directly from God or that He is allowing us to go through it. So it's either directly from Him or it is just Him allowing it to happen in our lives. And so is there an experience? Is there circumstances, a season that you went through that you thought, "Man, I want to walk away from that. I want to bury that and hide it"? And is that something that God could use for His glory in the life of somebody else? Let me give you an example. My wife and I, Mary Allison, we have walked through as a couple at least 4 miscarriages in our marriage. And as hard a season as each one of those were, and how difficult and how painful that is, and the loss that comes with that, it's a time that you, at the moment, and even kind of afterwards, you just go, "Man, I want to forget it. I want to bury it. I don't want to talk about those things." It can be easy to feel that temptation, but we've decided we don't want to bury it. We've decided that God can use that, and He can encourage and He can comfort another couple while they're going through the same thing. And we've chosen to invest it for His kingdom in the life of other couples and others that are going through the same thing. And here's what I know about you sitting there, about you watching online. There is something that God has allowed you to go through, or He has put you through directly, and you can use it for His purposes and for His kingdom. All right? If you would just invest it. Don't bury it and don't hide it, but use it for His glory. Use it for His purposes. So we think skills and abilities and talents, but think about circumstances. Think about experiences that you've gone through. This is what I love with a multi-generational church. We have individuals in this church that have lived a lot of life, have seen a lot of things. God has been faithful through it. And there are generations that need to hear those stories. There are generations that need to have their faith built up, hearing how God has been faithful through those stories. We all have talent, skills, resources, and opportunities that we need to invest in the kingdom of God. But instead of burying them, instead of ignoring them, we need to take risks with them. I love R.T. France here on his commentary on this says, risk is at the heart of discipleship. By playing safe, the cautious servant, the one that only received one, has achieved nothing. And it is his timidity and lack of enterprise which is condemned. 2 Timothy says, for God did not give us a spirit of fear. He didn't give us a spirit of timidity, but of love and power, sound mind, love, power, self-control. That we should be risking for the kingdom. Not reckless and not wasteful, but risking with what He has entrusted us with for His sake, for His kingdom. And as a local church too, we should be doing this. As a local church, we should be investing in the community around us. And I just want to celebrate a couple things. We know that we have been given a lot. And to whom a lot is given, to whom has received much, much is required. And we believe we've received much as a local church. And so much is required of us as well. We have facilities, we have a budget, we have people that we need to be taking risk with and investing in the kingdom. And so, y'all, in the first 3 months since January, we have almost invested $20,000 into our local community through our local ministry partners. Right? Not too long ago, we opened up our facilities because God has given us incredible facilities. We minister to almost just over 200 homeless in this community using our facilities. Speaking of our facilities, every second Wednesday we open up our facilities and feed foster families, right? On Wednesday night. They come eat, they're coming be encouraged, they learn, they further their education as foster parents and foster families, and we get to be a part of that. Why? By managing well what God has given to us. Every Monday morning we got the Secondhand Rose Ministry. I love watching them. They take flowers to our nursing homes, to our shut-ins, and to our widows every Monday morning. And then just a couple weeks ago, our 4th and 5th grade girls went and gave out Bibles that they painted on the university campus. They gave out Bibles right across the street here. Guys, we are doing incredible things as a people. It is not to brag about us. It's not to boast about us. I want to celebrate what we are doing and what we're seeing God do through us, but I also want to challenge us. Let's keep doing more. Because to whom much is given, much is required. See, the master is going to come back. He's going to return. He's going to say, what did you do with what I gave you? This is what we learn in verse 26. But his master answered him, you wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown. You knew that I gather where I scatter no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers. At my coming, I should have received what was my own with interest. Okay, at least like if you're not going to do anything else with it, just put it somewhere. We'll gain a little bit of interest, and it would be better than when I gave it to you so many years ago. He says, so take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10. For everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not even that will be taken from him. Cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Faithfulness will be rewarded later. Unfaithfulness will be judged according to Jesus. After a long time, the master comes to settle his accounts. It's accountability. What did you do with what I had given you? And they all report back. Accountability is a good thing. If we've been entrusted with something, then we're going to give an account for it. And they report back. Jesus is making it clear that the master is coming back. When he does, he is not looking to see how much we have accumulated. He is looking to see how faithful we invested what he entrusted to us for the furthering of his kingdom. C.S. Lewis put it this way: if you read history, you will find that the Christians who did the most for the present world were just those who thought the most of the next. The apostles themselves who set foot the conversion of the Roman Empire, the great men who built up the Middle Ages, the English evangelicals who abolished the slave trade, they all left their mark on earth precisely because their minds were occupied with heaven. It is since Christians have largely ceased to think of the other world that they have become so ineffective in this. Let that not be said of First Baptist. Let us continue to fix our minds and continue to fix our hearts on what's next. All right, continue to fix our heart on heaven, and make an impact in this community. Make an impact while we are here. In other words, the people who make the greatest impact are the ones who don't think that this is all there is. We don't bury what we have. We don't stockpile it. We take risk and we invest it for the sake of God's kingdom, knowing one day that the master will come home. We live in light of that day. And so for the stay-at-home mom, it's creating a home where Christ is central and you are discipling your kids to one day send them out. You are helping other stay-at-home moms who are in the trenches. For the business owner, it's creating a company with integrity and generosity and a purpose bigger than yourself, seeing your workplace as a mission field, your profits as a tool for the gospel. For the student, it means choose character over compromise. You view your classroom as a training ground for further kingdom purposes. Share the gospel with boldness in your classroom, knowing that God is trusting you with a little, and that over time He will give you more as He sees you faithful. For the retiree, it means repurposing your time. You are not done yet, right? You didn't pay your dues and you're done. If you're retired, repurpose your time. Repurpose that wisdom. Use those experiences that you've had and how you've seen God be faithful. Invest it and mentor the next generation. So the big idea this morning, we don't own what we have. We manage what we've been given. We don't own what we have. We manage what we've been given. So let me ask you again, if you knew Jesus was coming back next month, if you knew He was coming back next month, would you do anything differently? What would it be? And what is keeping you from doing it now? And I thought about Sierra, fear, anxiety, keeping her from obeying God. And she said, not any longer. What is keeping you from doing what God has asked you to do? Here's 3 next steps to help with this week. Number 1, this week I will identify what God has entrusted to me. What resources, time, opportunities, skills, what has God called you to do? What has made you unique about you that God has entrusted you with? Maybe even make a list. This week I will take a faithful risk with something God has entrusted to me. Right? Maybe you have something and you say, man, I want a risk. I'm going to take a risk this week with something that God has entrusted me with. Something that maybe you've been burying, something that you've been hiding, and maybe you bring it out and you said, you know what? I want to take a risk with this week. This week I will live like Jesus is coming back next month. Okay? I will live like Jesus is coming back next month. I think it says, I will love. I think that was predictive text. But you know what? I kind of like that better, man. Let's just love like Jesus is coming back next month. Let our schedules reflect that. Let our spending reflect it. Our conversations should reflect that. Our prayers should reflect that we don't own what we have, that we are just managing what we've been given, that we have moved from ownership to stewardship. But this morning, I want to give you a chance to respond right now. The only reason that at the end of our lives that we give an account to the master, and if we were to hear, well done, good and faithful servant, the only way that happens is because Jesus is the good and faithful servant. He obeyed completely, perfectly, died the death that you and I deserved, came back to life, He ascended to the Father, and what we've learned this morning is He is coming back again. Have you trusted Him? Do you place your faith in Him? This morning, you can surrender your life to Him. Maybe you've never been baptized. Maybe your story is like Sierra's, and something has kept you from doing that, but you know it's time. You know God has asked you to do this. You know you're supposed to. Just come talk to one of us. Maybe you have something that you've been hiding. You have something that you've been burying, and you know that God has called you to it. God has called you to do this. And maybe we can just pray with you. Whatever it is, man, give us the privilege of getting to pray alongside of you in that journey. God, move in this place. God, I know you've already shown people what it is that they have, that you've given to them and entrusted them with. Help them be obedient to take risks for your kingdom. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, hey, thanks again for watching this morning. My name is Drew Chapman. I have the privilege and the honor of being the senior pastor here at First Baptist. And look, this week, if we can do anything for you here at First, please reach out. You can email us at prayer@firsttuscaloosa.org. If you got any questions or prayer requests or any way that we can serve you this week, don't hesitate to reach out. Enjoy your week.